Little Dogman is my best bro. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I have a story about a dogman who lives with me as my best friend. I'm not going to send you any photos, so please don't even ask me. If you don't believe me, you don't have to run my story. My little bro lives here because it was my fate to be his protector, and I take that seriously. I'll tell you the story of how we met, and maybe then you can understand why my feelings are so deep when it concerns protecting my little buddy and making sure that nobody else figures out what he really is. I even trained him to walk on all fours when people are around. He seems to understand that his being discovered could mean the end of everything. I think it's because of the pack he used to run with. So let me go back to the beginning and tell you about them. I first met Jasper back up north in Canada. He and I live in northern Michigan now, so I call him my Michigan Dogman. But honestly, I found him up in Canada, way up at the very top of Ontario. My buddy flew me into the Peawanuck airport up there so that I could hike alone for a few weeks. I was actually kind of hoping to see polar bears in the wild, because that's what lives up there, but I never did. What I did run across, though, was an entire pack of wild dogs, unlike any I'd ever seen before. Before I went to Canada, I thought it was all a snowy wasteland up to the north. Of course, they do get snow in the winter, but what I found there when I was hiking and making camp was a lot of pine wood forest land. I followed the Winnisk River north, staying mainly in the woods and only coming out into the open sky to get myself water from the river. I felt paranoid the entire time I was there, and I still have no explanation for why that was. My plan was to follow the river north until I felt like turning around and heading back to the airport. It was a strange time in my life, and I just felt the need to be alone and start over in the wilderness. I don't want to get into details, but I had lost my family, and I took a month off from my job to head north to look for polar bears. It was something I had always wanted to do, and when my friend offered me a ride on his plane, I jumped at it. Seemed like fate, you know? And I suppose it was, even though I never got to see a polar bear outside of a zoo. So one day I was walking out of the forest where I had my camp set up to go fill my canteen with water from the river. As I exited the woods, though, I heard a lot of splashing and commotion down at the water. Hiding myself behind trees and rocks, I crept closer to the river to get a better view of what was causing all the fuss. Down there in the water were what I thought at first was a family of bears, either playing or fighting in the river. When I got a little better view, though, I was very confused to see that they each had different markings, and most of them were not all one solid color, as all the bear I've ever seen were. These creatures, some of them had markings like wolves, with tan fur that grew lighter around the eyes and cheeks, with no snouts, almost white. Some others had markings more like a German shepherd. They were big, burly creatures, some of them as large as bears themselves. One in particular was so muscular that it looked like he frequented a gym. One of the most surprising things about this group of 8 or 9 furry animals was that when they climbed out of the water, they revealed themselves to be bipedal. Well, that might not be the correct way to phrase it. They climbed out on all fours, as a normal dog or wolf might, and they shook themselves to dry off in the same way that your family pet dog does it. But then once that had happened, they stood up on their hind legs, and they looked around. Not like meerkats, though, and not like bears. They stood up, like you or like me, shoulders back, chest out, looking as though they owned the place. Maybe they did. These animals do not have hands. They have dog paws, but they're not like your dog's paw. First of all, they are proportionally larger than your average dog paw, and second of all, they have an additional digit, or rather the dew claw is positioned differently and in a more useful place. As a result, these paws are capable of picking things up and doing a number of the things that hands can do. I was unable to discern which of them were male or female, although it appeared they were all male. The wind seemed to shift suddenly, and I was afraid my scent might carry to them. So I retreated into the woods and did without water for an hour, waiting for them to move on. The next time I encountered them, I had a better viewpoint, and I witnessed their behavior toward each other. In this case, I came upon them feeding on what looked to me to have once been a moose. If not, then it was a large deer, I suppose. As in most wolf or dog packs, there was a clear pecking order, with the larger animals getting first dibs, and some of the smaller ones finding it hard to get anything to eat at all. There was one smaller animal in particular who I noticed, as the others seemed especially fierce when he would approach their part of the kill. He didn't just get growled at, he got snapped at, and chased at one point. They treated him with such contempt. My heart went out to him. He was literally the underdog, beaten down and beaten back by his own family and friends, not allowed to eat his fill to ensure that he always stays the smallest of the group. It reminded me of a lot of things I've lived through in the human world. That night I went to sleep wishing I could have rescued that dogman from the others of his kind. I wished I could bring him home and let him have first dibs on all the food for a change. I sort of built up feelings for this creature in my head and in my heart, and then I tried to banish them so I could try to get some sleep. It's stupid to project human feelings onto animals, or at least that's what I told myself. I don't know what he's feeling. Maybe he enjoys his place in the world. Who am I to judge any of them? They're animals surviving in the wild, just as I was. But, they were the professionals. They did it for a living, as it were. I had no business projecting bourgeois values on these feral creatures, like a PTA lady trying to censor video games that she doesn't even understand. Still, I went to sleep with a nagging feeling, and I didn't sleep well. My final encounter with the Dogman pack decided everything for me. What happened was that once again, I ran into them, as they were migrating and hunting along the same river as I was. This time the kill was much smaller than the last one, and the fighting among the pack was consequently more savage. I saw the dogman I felt a bond to, looking scrawnier than ever, and fighting more bravely than ever to get some food inside his belly. But my favorite dogman managed to earn the ire of two larger dogmen at the same time. They were so unhappy with him that they stood up and they fought like men. I saw one swing at him with a fist. I saw the other hurl a rock, which careened off my dogman's shoulder. The smaller dogman ran from the group, but one of the others was so incensed that he chased him. Both were running toward me, and in a sudden adrenaline rush, I burst out of the bushes with a rock in my hand, and I ran toward them. The larger one was upon the smaller, and had already done quite a job on the little guy. I hurled my rock at the other one's head, hoping to get his attention, and more than succeeding. Something about me charging at him screaming like Mel Gibson in the movie Braveheart caused that dogman to run back and rejoin his pack. The little dogman was unconscious. I couldn't really tell how badly injured he was, as I'm not a vet or anything. I picked him up as gently as I could, and I carried him back to my camp. None of the others followed me. They were all too interested in fighting over the food. That night, the dogman came into and out of consciousness, and I shared liquid foods with him that I had with me. I wondered how I would get him back to safety. Would I have to carry him back to the airport? That was going to be a week of traveling. I wasn't sure I had the strength to carry him that far. I had passed some settlements or encampments. I wonder if maybe someone in one of those places could help me. But I didn't have to worry. In the morning, I woke to a tongue bath from a hungry dogman. He licked me all over my face and seemed to be begging me for food or something. I shared my breakfast with him, I forget what it was, and then the two of us went fishing in the Winnisk. He's a much better fisherman than I am, believe me, but he doesn't share what he catches. Not anymore, anyway. How strange that this little guy was going hungry when he was such a good fisherman. And it was all because of the little society he was in. It was a false scarcity that kept the big ones in charge and on top. He would have been better off going it alone. Well, maybe not, because of his small size. He's still only 5 feet tall at his full height. Nah, he was better off going with me. Now, my buddy with the airplane insisted that there was no way we could bring him back to the United States. He would get confiscated. He was a rare animal. He was a dogman. I told my friend that this dog knows how to walk on all fours. If we could train him to walk on all fours every time humans were around, then maybe nobody might even notice that he wasn't an ordinary dog. He was small enough to pass for a house pet, as long as he stayed down. And he was so friendly with me from the very start, because he wanted to please me. That alone was a reward for him, seeing that he'd made me happy. He also needed a name, so I named him after my pilot buddy, Jasper. Now, Jasper the human still didn't think we could get Jasper the dog back into the States, because there would be a big quarantine period before he could come to live in Michigan with me. And Jasper the human was also convinced that Jasper the dogman would get discovered and confiscated sometime during that period when we were separated. So clearly there was only one thing to do. My buddy had to fly me back to the States on his private plane. And then some of our buddies basically smuggled the dog into the States. It's a long story that I wouldn't tell you if you paid me. We tricked everybody, and now this dogman friend of mine lives with me. He has the run of the land. He has rabbits to chase. He rarely does more than chase them now, though, because he's too well fed to care all that much about hunting. He gets to live like a prince. 2 cans of dog food a day plus milk bones and table scraps. He's better behaved than 2 other dogs I've known and loved. I think it's because he knows what the alternative is to living with me. He remembers what it was like out there, and he doesn't want to go back to that. And I don't want him to go back to that. I have no idea what his age is. He's never seen a vet. I don't want to raise awareness about him with anyone around here. We just want to live our lives in peace. I am thinking, though, that after he passes, assuming I outlive him, maybe I should donate his body to someone who will genuinely investigate and find out what species he really is. I mean, is he just a wolf with a mutation? Or is he some new kind of species? I might have already tried to have his DNA tested, but I feel like it's not a safe thing to do while he's alive. For his sake, I mean. I don't want bad people to be able to triangulate and find out where he is. I want to know if it's alright if I tell you some stuff about this guy that sort of borders on opinion. Obviously, I'm very partial here. I love this guy. He's the best friend I ever had. At the same time, I saw the violence that the others in his pack were capable of. And so I want it clear that I do not advise people in general to try to make a pet out of the dogman. I was put in a situation where I felt I had no choice but to rescue him and take him in. But please remember that before that moment came where I had to save him, I hid myself from those dogmen. I stayed upwind of them. I tried my best to only observe them and not interfere. So please don't take my story as a reason to go chasing after any kind of wild animal. It's usually bad for you and them. So please give wild creatures their space and keep yourself safe. But now that I've said that, I'm going to argue for more empathy toward the dogman population. I think it's growing, and I think there will be more and more interactions between us and them moving into the future. While they can be very dangerous, they are probably not that much more dangerous than bears or wildcats or other predators. We've learned to live with predators of other types, so let's not automatically assume that all dogmen are the bad kind. That's not to say that bad ones aren't out there. I've heard some stories that practically make the beast sound paranormal. I don't know if those stories are exaggerated or not, but there seem to be more than one kind of dogman. For instance, my dogman cannot run at 70 miles per hour. He runs about as fast as I do. We jog around my property in the mornings, as long as the weather permits. He can run faster than me when he drops down to all fours, but I haven't ever tried to race him or to time him, I think he runs about as fast as any other dog, but not faster or slower. So if those stories of dogmen outracing cars have any basis in fact, then those were either larger dogmen with longer legs than Jasper, or maybe they were some entirely different species. The main reason I'm speaking to you about this subject, though, is somewhat personal. I'm wondering if anyone out there has a dogman female of breeding age who might want to introduce their girl to my guy. I don't really know if he's young or old, but if he could possibly have a son, I think that would be quite a miracle for both him and for me. I want him to have the fullest life possible. I know I've given him safety, but there are aspects of a life of danger which are superior to a life in the country with no stress or worries. As a pet, he won't mate unless I can find him a mate, and so if I can, I would like to do that. I understand that I might be the only person in the world in this situation, and there might not be any female dogman in captivity. When I saw that pack, they seemed to be all males, so where were the females? Maybe they don't hunt. Maybe they're kept in a safe spot somewhere, and the males bring back food to them. I only saw them eating on the spot. I never witnessed them carrying food off to feed the females. I really don't know how their world functions. Do the two sexes live entirely apart? I would have no way of knowing. Jasper is a very intelligent dog, but I don't think he has psychic powers, and I don't think he's part human or anything like that. He's the sweetest dog on the planet, and I still get excited every time he wakes me up or asks me to go play outside. I think I have more fun with him than he has with me. It kind of makes me sad, because I would love to introduce you and every single one of your viewers to Jasper. I know you would love him as much as he would love you. He really does enjoy it on the rare occasions when I have company way out here. I don't get why humans have to make things so complicated, just as I never understood why the other dogmen would bully Jasper around. I don't get why people can't just live and let live. I feel like the older I get, the more sentimental I get. Why can't people and animals look out for each other more? I realize I sound like a tree hugger, but you gotta understand. Little Dogman is my best bro. If you do, as you ought, then you'll say thanks to Lost in Thought. Please join us in thanking Lost in Thought for making this episode possible. Lost in Thought just rejoined our $10 channel membership. That means he gets all our perks, including secret uncensored stories, our over 25 hours of archived secret stories, and if I ever get over this cold, Lost in Thought will return to watching many of our episodes in advance of the general public. If you too would like to heroically help our channel stay online like the great and magnificent Lost in Thought, then listen to what our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman, has to say. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.